Indiana Jones, Indiana. It's a podcast about Indiana Jones. Every movie, 1 minute at a time. Indiana Jones, Indiana Jones Minute.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Indiana Jones Minute. This is the podcast where we set fire to the film Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull 1 minute at a time. I'm Tom Taylor.
I'm Pete Muppert.
Gerald Christopher Sleeping Snake Porter.
And I'm Thor Ritz. I didn't think of a clever nickname for myself. So halfway through, I'll come up with something good.
All right, awesome. Yeah, let us know.
Yeah.
Just interrupt whenever you need to, and we'll plug that in. This will be great.
I have to say, Thor Ritz is one of the all-time great names. Like, that's a fantastic name.
I mean, what do you mean you didn't come up with a clever name?
How do you clever that
your
up?
parents did.
Yeah, your parents did.
Yeah, I'm Tom Taylor. That's my clever name.
My folks were so damn boring. They named my oldest sister after my mother, my middle sister after my grandmother, and me after my father.
Yeah, but you're not even junior. Like they didn't
No.
like fully name you after your dad.
No, it's just like how bored. I mean, I kind of like, what were the circumstances?
Distracted.
Yeah, just exactly.
Well, see, my grandmother, her whole family were named after Greek gods and goddesses. Like, she was
Oh
Orphea.
man.
And,
Are
like,
you
they're-
serious?
Whoa.
Yeah. There's
Wait
like
a minute, what'd you
Marathon
call it?
and-
Like Grandma Orphean?
God.
That was odd. Like, Orphea is amazing. Like, and the whole family had like Greek goddesses names. Although they were
Wow.
often, the gender was often switched. Like, she wasn't Orpheus, she was Orphea.
Wow.
That's impressive. So I've got two stories to tell you. I'll make them very quick. But one is that my very impressive name, Thor. My father's name is Thor, so he just picked what he already had. He wasn't very creative, so I'm kind of in the same boat as your family. I hope he doesn't listen to this. I think he will.
I wonder. It's like, do you think, oh, and you're Little Thunder? Is that what they called you as a kid?
Yeah.
Little Hammer. They're over there,
Yeah.
Little Hammer.
Yes, but apropos of this podcast, though, my father's namesake is actually from Thor Heyerdahl. Do you guys know that name?
Yeah.
Yes.
Like
Yeah,
in terms
yeah.
of like mid 20th century explorers and
Oh, sure,
pseudo
Yeah, with
Yeah.
the Kon-Tiki.
yeah pseudo archaeologists. Like
Yeah.
he's totally in like the vein of like the Indiana Jones tradition. And
Yeah.
my grandmother heard him speak when she was in art college in Boston, way before my father came into the world, and she absolutely fell in love with him. So that's where the namesake comes from. So
Oh,
I
pretty
feel
cool.
like
That's
I
awesome.
belong here.
Wow. Yeah.
More than we do.
Yeah, please tell us what to do. You're in charge now.
Yeah.
Have you ever watched that film, Kon-Tiki?
Yeah, it's
It's
interesting.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty gripping for like a 1950 documentary about sailing.
Yeah, for sure. And he of course, like so many of, I guess, our heroes, he ends up being a pretty problematic man
Yeah.
later on in life.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but he sure captivated the minds and imaginations of people in the in the 50s and 60s.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
I'm only named after my dad because I was born on his birthday. I'll just that's an even more boring story than anybody's.
Boys, I'm the only one here not named after my dad.
Wow, that's boring. No,
Yeah,
it's
I
not.
know.
It's actually interesting. They had to make a decision. They decided I was going to be a Peter. Peter was on the list. They had a whole
Oh.
list of names for me,
You're lucky.
and
you're
none of them
Tom.
was Tom. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what? I was gonna be an Andrew.
That's my
And-
middle name.
Is that right? I remember.
I was gonna start going by Drew. So
Yes,
Cool.
I remember. And Pete, you'll know
Okay,
my
Fred,
girlfriend. My girlfriend in college, Pete. You as you remember, my girlfriend in college, Elizabeth. She told me, if your name was Drew, I would have you immediately. But my name is Jerry.
Jerry.
Gerald.
Hi, Jerry.
Yeah, it's a
it's
terrible.
good. The guy was
name.
hey, that's my middle name.
Well, you should start using it. Start using
I know.
it. See how your life changes.
Get off me. Just because my name's Drew. Get off. I'm trying to walk. All right. Well, speaking of everything, this is minute 69. Hey, high five.
Hey.
Whoa!
Minute
what?
65. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Minute 69 is this is where Indy is continuing his lecture based on Oxley's pictograms to the Russians, and it ends with Mutt setting fire to a tent during a daring escape.
Now, question for you, Thor. You are an academician. Are you weird?
Well,
Be honest.
The last, Jerry, I should actually, my honest answer to that is last time that I was on, perhaps a few years ago, you asked me something about lines in people's faces and whether or not it related to cartography. So I will turn the question back to you, and I will answer it for you and say, yes, you are. But I am a little bit weird on this topic because, funnily enough, maybe this is why you all asked me to come join you, is that we actually only see a map for what? Maybe like 10, maybe 5 seconds.
We are really, really, really good hosts because we said, "Oh, isn't there like a map in that minute? Get Thor, get the map guy. He was good.
Get
we
the
like
map
him.
guy."
He knows about maps." And then we watched the minute. We're like, "Boy, oh boy, there's not much,
It's
not
ridiculous.
much map in here." All right, whatever. Thor's good.
Yeah,
Like,
for
I'm
those
actually-
who might, yeah. What Thor? Do you have? Is it your PhD in geography? Is that what it is?
Yeah, I've got a PhD in geography, which for in layman's terms, it's maps, and for the modern world, let's call it GPS. So mapping the world and describing it, and then my training is in historical geography, which pertains a little bit to what we encounter in Indiana Jones. I focus on a different part of the world, so I won't be an expert for this episode, but I will. I'm fixated on two things. One is the geography of the movie, which is like really ambiguous and weird, but you've probably already unpacked that.
You know what I'm saying?
And then I want to hear everything that you guys have learned about aliens, unrelated to geography, but I think it is really awesome.
I would like to hear what we've learned about aliens.
Yeah, well, the reason I opened with that question, "Are you weird?" is because we're talking about we've been kicking this around. So they show Ox here, and he's bumbling and rambling, and he has the madman ravings and rantings. But we're wondering if that's just his typical self. I mean, you worked in the you've worked in the ivory towers of higher education. Is Oxley? I mean, could he just be a regular guy and everybody thinks he's weird?
No, Ox has gone off the reservation 100%. He's doing his own thing. The one, if we could rewind the film back to the moment where Indy's in the classroom and what's the actor's name? He comes to announce that
Jim
basically,
Broadbent.
yes, he interrupts the class and announces that Indy will be no longer part of the department. That is the academia that I'm familiar with, which is like
Thor, you're out.
well, I mean, I was never ousted from a position, but the sort of like the jacket wearing lecturing sort of like professor who isn't in the field. And I think that like within geography and archaeology today, I think that a lot of that holds up. There's a lot of folks writing and publishing, but not necessarily like in the field. So that I don't know, I'm going to make a bunch of callbacks to scenes that you all have probably dissected a ton. But when he's on the motorcycle with Mutt driving and he yells at one of his students to get out into the field, like that is a thing that doesn't happen much in academia right now.
Well, how do you get out into a map?
Right now, it's all, and we'll get into this when we talk about geoglyphs, but right now it's all about drones and satellite technology, and there's a ton of people in the Amazon trying to solve, I think, some of the problems that come up in this movie, which is like not just how do you get out and do a map, but how do you get out and do a map in a densely forested area? Like aerial photography doesn't work, and so you need like lots of laser technology in order to map topography. So
does LiDAR work if there are trees on the surface, like heavy foliage?
Yeah, or it works decently well. Like it's not a perfect technology, but a lot of the geoglyphs that used to only be able to be seen in the desert can now be detected in jungles, which is really cool.
Wow.
Have we not chopped down all the jungles yet? I thought that we were done with that. I thought we'd done all the rainforest and all the jungles.
We're working on it, I guess.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So, quick here. Did Ox understand like this entire time? You know, did Ox understand what everybody was saying, or did he just now sort of capitulate to Indy's? They're gonna hurt Abner's little girl's beseechings.
To what? What do you mean?
Why are you asking that?
Yeah. Well, I'm asking. I'm just because.
Explain yourself.
Yeah, I'm wondering this entire time, did Ox like just all of a sudden did he starts to like draw quote directions that make sense?
Oh, or has he been drawing the whole time? And
yes, has he been drawing the whole time, or has he been understanding them the whole time, but no one's been there to interpret it, or is he just now being like, oh, well, okay, now I'll be coherent-ish?
It seems like Spalko's reaction makes it seem like he's been doing the hand thing a lot, and she didn't recognize what it was until Indy showed up and put a piece of paper in front of it. Like he's our hero, and he's the only one who can make sense of this.
But if like they had held up a piece of paper earlier, would it have been like Spalko, like Kate Winslet in Titanic? Like would he have been painting her like is it just, depending on his mood, he's painting whatever?
Right? Yeah. Does a perfect Garfield. He does a Hagar the Horrible. He does like a Charlie Brown. Yeah.
There's a weird part they took out. Two little weird parts. The first part, when Indy bends over the map, you see Mac collecting a wad of cash from the Russian soldier that he had made a bet with in a previous minute.
Wow.
And then as everybody's looking at the map, like kind of leans in close, Mac presses in really close next to Marion. So they're still taking out that part where there was like this thing where Mac was making moves on Marion this whole time.
Oh, God.
Oh, weird.
Oh, because he had bet like the soldiers that Indy was going to figure it out or something, right?
I don't remember what the bet was. Yeah, they cut that out.
Something like that, yeah.
And then there was this whole thing where he's like being really lascivious towards Marion.
We don't need that.
They kind of cut that out too, yeah.
Yeah, that was a good
Unless you decks him. Unless you decks him right in the boing-boings, like the second he does anything. That would have been good. Indy he's like explaining this, like he's in mid-grand explanation. And I think we were saying last time, it's like you just fast forward, like just get to the reaction so I know what it is you're talking about. So like I know if this is a good thing or you understand whatever. And he keeps saying, of course. And he says the great snake is the Amazon, of course. And it's like, all right, genius. We all know the Amazon's a big river. Cool. You don't have to be like, it's very patronizing of you, Dr. Jones.
Well, he also could very easily be wrong.
He could. Yeah, that'd be amazing if he was wrong. It's like, oh, you know what? Now that I think about it, now that we're falling off a cliff, I guess maybe the great snake was something else. Sometimes the snake is just a snake.
Have you all talked yet about what the symbols and the Quechua that Indy is using actually means, or is that something that is just sort of a black box for us?
No, go for it.
Well, sorry, I don't want to be Debbie. I should start by saying I love this film. I hadn't seen it for ages, and being like having an excuse to rewatch it made me super happy. So,
great.
Nice.
You're welcome.
Awesome.
So thank you for that. And now let me be Debbie Downer. The geography of where he is and the languages that are spoken and like what exactly he's conveying is like so mixed up and weird.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Have you guys already covered that? I don't want to rehash old grudges.
But you're the professional here. I mean,
I think Pete spiritually left the show when they got to South America
or Mexico, wherever,
or Mexico, whatever that was, whatever they were calling it. Yeah.
When like the music came on and they actually flew a Mexican flag at the airport.
Yeah.
Oh my God! So it's south of Mexico,
and then they got like the Aztec sun disk and the
Yeah.
in the cavern, like everything. Yeah.
Well, we were just saying the bum out was it was kind of lazy. That's all. All they had to do was just get a Thor. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just invite
Or a
Thor
high school
on.
student,
Yeah.
you know.
Sort of. Although, there's a devil's advocate story to be made, which is like the majority of people watching this don't have the knowledge beforehand. And if we get too specific, then we're hamstrung with a narrative which is like that. Like Nazca lines actually fall in the desert in Peru. Like, how did we get from there to the Amazon jungle? Like, all of that stuff might be uninteresting to folks. Like, I think it's like if we were going to give a generous read to it, I think we can give them that. But like when it comes to like the puzzle that Ox has like set up for Indy, I think that they could have done better. Like the language that he's saying is dead and never spoken, but he's going to use Quechua to like that part. I think was maybe the lazy part, which was like these lines aren't connecting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so
Yeah.
he says he's going to walk it through Mayan, right?
Yeah.
And
Right.
then what he
Yeah,
says,
yeah.
Oh, right.
is
Which
that
again, why are you walking it through a language from thousands of miles away that has absolutely no linguistic tie to what you're talking about?
Walking through Klingon.
did that? I mean, does that make any sense to you, Thor? Have you heard anything like that? I mean, I don't know. Maybe you can. I don't know.
It makes I think zero sense, which doesn't take away from the it doesn't take away from the fun of the puzzle, which
Sure.
like I love the idea that there is a linguistic puzzle that he's trying to solve. It just unfortunately they I think they were a little clunky about it.
Yeah.
But they do get to. All right, I'm going to keep asking you all questions. Have you all talked yet about the lost city of Z?
We haven't
No.
actually. I don't think.
No, go for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there is a real city in the region of South America that they're talking about, or the remnants of a real city. The lost city of Z is people can look up a book which is a nonfiction about the exploits of Sir Percy Fawcett, I think is his name. I'm
Yeah,
not
it's
an
Percy
expert in
Fawcett.
this.
Yeah, I read the book a while back.
Did you? And like, so there is a reality behind what they're searching for. Like, if we chop out the aliens and we just talk about the pure geography of it, there is like a real history of people going to these cities, searching out local guides. They might not have been speaking Quechua, but they were definitely working with folks on the ground there to hunt for a civilization that has gone extinct. And I think that's one of the coolest things about the film is that even though they're cutting corners about language and geography, there is a real history of this, which is like super interesting and cool and dangerous, and all of that stuff is really cool to me.
It's
Yeah.
I think one of the things that bugs me is like when Oriana made his trek down the Amazon and then like abandoned all of his buddies and stuff. Like he claimed to have seen all these like ancient like these cities and like cities
Right.
made of stone and city, you know, like the Amazon women and cities like giant cities. And then there was never any evidence of what he talked about later, you know, that people could find later. But like it's interesting, like you said, there is actual, at least there are stories of this stuff being out there. And I feel like the movie kind of jumped over all of that.
Yeah, it gets kind of lost with like all the kind of muddled plotting of where Oxley's been and where Marion's been and who's Marion and what's Mac up to and stuff like these Russians are hanging out and everything. Like, hearing you talk about that stuff, I'm like, oh boy, I'd love to strip away all this.
Yeah.
Get Kate Blanchett out of there. She's not doing anything. I want to get to the actual, the interesting part, the adventure, the quest.
I feel like the other movies, I mean, especially Raiders, to a lesser extent, the other two, but they all had at least something with some historical, at least a little historical heft you could hang your hat on.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like this sort of jumps over that.
Right. And it sounds like it could have had that. It could have,
Right.
like if
It
they
could
had
have-
stuck
they
with
could
the
have done
actual
something, yeah.
stuff, they could have
Yeah.
had that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Well.
is there a Thor? Do you know? What was there sort of an El Dorado? Is there? Did they ever? Could you put a pin on a map at El Dorado, or something that they thought maybe it was?
So at the end of the most recent book, Lost City of Z, so not the film or anything, they do have on the ground folks who have found what is effectively like the remnants of, let's say, 20 to I'm making this up, so don't call me an expert on this, but like 20 to 30 like villages that were interconnected with these geoglyphs in the jungle, in the Amazon, in the general vicinity of what we were calling El Dorado. So
Wow.
no gold, but definitely evidence of like a fairly advanced civilization in a part of the world where we never expected it to be. So there's like reason to be excited about this that is not just based in myth, which is really cool.
That is really cool.
That is
Wow.
really cool. Well, you
There
can
was
see when they start out with the story, you're like, oh, go on, this is terrific. This could be a
Yeah.
great Indiana Jones movie. I mean, when you
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there was also a book that came out just a couple of years before this, called 1491 by Charles Mann.
Oh yeah.
That
Yeah.
was sort of some of the latest revelations in archaeology about the Americas before Columbus, and like he was talking about like these interconnected cities, like with the raised walkways, and they had found all this evidence of this stuff, and they knew so this stuff was out there, and this was a big book, and like this stuff was out there when they were making the movie. I wish they latched onto it a little more. The other thing about Lost City of Z that I feel like they didn't capture in this movie is every minute of that book, I was so uncomfortable. Like I was itchy and hot and sweaty. It just seemed miserable.
Yeah.
And in this movie, like they're in the exact same jungle, and he's wearing a coat and a hat, and he's fine. He's just got kicking back, and he feels fine. There are no bugs. It seems like
you
it's
can
nice and
smell
cool.
the donuts from the craft services table. Like just off camera. Like there's that absolute like indoor feeling about this. Like we've been saying that from the very beginning. Like when they were in New Mexico, it just felt like they were inside. And like that they were faking the outside, and that's what you feel like here.
It definitely doesn't feel like the Amazon to me. Like it doesn't have any sense of menace or any sense of
there's
wild.
when they go to Oriana's grave, the cemetery. I mean, we talked about it. Looked like Sleepy Hollow.
Yeah,
right.
Like upstate New York. I mean, I don't know. Is it Thor? Is there a place that looks like like upstate New York in autumn? Like where I mean, for all I know, maybe there is. Maybe it's a higher elevation or something. I don't know.
It's really funny, Jared, that I hadn't made that association, but it's totally right. If only Sleepy Hollow had like guys jumping out of holes blowing poison darts at you.
Yeah. Poison darts that are poison on both ends.
Right.
Right.
That's right. Just in case.
Yeah. You never know what's going to happen.
Well, when Indy's talking here, he says he wants us to follow the curve of the Sono down to where it meets the Amazon. After that, I'm not sure. A kingdom of dreams, tears in eyes. And has Indy ever waxed this poetic before?
I don't know if he's he's kind of like forced into it because he's reading Oxley's stuff. It's like he's not being poetic. He's just sort of like stuck in poetry or something.
Yeah.
I got to deal with this poetic imagery.
Great. Yeah.
Let me punch somebody.
There are some great lines, in this movie. Some beautifully written lines, and maybe that is one of them. So Thor at second 13. We have this, I guess they pull out the map. We're getting into the innards of why you're here, the guts.
Yeah.
And one of the guys like slams what at first I thought was a paperweight on the map, but I guess it's like a magnifying glass, right?
Yeah, it's like a magnifying glass that you can drag over, like it sits flat on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
And if you had enough light, as you dragged it around, you would be able to see stuff magnified underneath it.
Oh, that's cool.
I have an Oxford English dictionary that the print is so tiny it comes with one of those.
Oh,
nice.
Wow.
It's like a giant. It's all in one volume, so they make the print so tiny. You have to use that exact magnifying glass to go over and read the entries.
I feel like it's like real life pixels. Pete, how much was that?
It was a lot because I got it like back in the 90s. I think you can get them a lot cheaper now.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thor, have you you talked about going out in the field, in geography, going out in the field. Like, have you ever used one of those in the field or?
No. But I bet it is. I bet it's like in terms of like era accuracy.
Sure.
Yeah, I bet people would have been using that. Like it's maybe they had some lights attached to it. Like right now it would be either digital or you'd have LEDs inset into it so that you would have the light provided.
Yeah.
But no, it's still something that like old school probably archaeologists use.
Sure. They really bring a lot out into the jungle, those Russians.
Yeah, they're well equipped. Well, the Nazis did the same thing in the desert, I guess.
True.
They were close
Cairo.
though. That was
Yeah,
spitting distance from Germany. This is a long way to take that stuff.
Yeah, it's true.
The biggest thing, I don't know if you guys find this interesting, but from that little scene where they slap a map on the table and they start searching it out, the thing that they probably wouldn't have had is like that whole area just would have been blank green at that time. Like there would be no place names. There would be no information. Like they still did not know what was in that part of the world.
Yeah, I mean, Indy says, he's like, oh, we followed this curve down here, and then after that, I'm not sure. And I'm like, well, what?
Yeah.
I would think that the whole map would just be like, after that, I'm not sure. Like a big question mark, like, just like little dragons drawn and stuff like that. Like, here there be dragons. But I guess they had some stuff.
I thought you were about to say the map would be covered with bugs at this point.
Ooh, yeah, bugs.
Right, yeah. It should have been.
Can I tell you a funny little story about my father-in-law?
Yeah,
of course.
Yeah.
So, my father-in-law, his name is Franz Lids, and you all can look him up if you want to. He writes for the Smithsonian and for New York Times and stuff. And ages ago, he did a story where he floated down the Amazon. I'm still not really sure about what he actually did, but he acquired a botfly on the way.
Oh,
I don't know if you
wow!
Like,
oh man!
Plants the eggs under like their skin, and it hatches and then travels around.
I don't like it.
Wait, keep going.
Fast forward.
Wait.
And he named it. He named it. I forget what he named it, but it is the bugs are for real. Like the real life struggles of being in the Amazon are so disgusting. Like that is missing.
Literally everything there once you dead. Like every moving thing once you dead.
Yep.
Slowly
including
dead
the
too.
trees, the plants. Yeah.
After you've given birth to all their offspring, then you can die.
Then you wow, that's amazing. You're like a traveling incubator.
Yeah. You seem warm and moist.
Oh
You'll
my
do.
gosh. This scene here is reminiscent of the opening Area 51 scene because everyone is waiting on Indy, right? And they're waiting for him to explain everything or to divulge what they seek, and he starts demanding stuff. He says, get a map.
Yeah,
and remember,
give me a map. Yeah,
yeah, and he all of a sudden he's completely commanding everybody. It's very interesting. That's what he did with didn't he say bullets, get me shells or something?
Yeah. Yeah, and then there's that weird moment where he's doing his whole lecture and stuff, and then he's like, I'm not sure what this water sleep thing means, and then she drops it. Oh, it's Portuguese for sleep. There's the sono or whatever, and there's an instant where they're sort of collaborating and they're on the same side, and they've forgotten that they're enemies and stuff, and that I'm not sure what I want to say about that except to make fun of it like that because I don't like that moment. It's weird. It's I don't think. I'm not feeling that Indy is so wrapped up in this quest all of a sudden,
right?
That he's forgetting what the situation is and stuff, and that he's buddies now with her, and they're gonna crack this case together or something.
Yeah, 2 minutes ago he was like, they're gonna kill Abner's little girl, and then he's like,
yeah,
hey chum,
right. Well, in fact, the only one who seems to still get it is Mutt.
Yeah,
who is sort of creeping in the background for this entire minute, and he's furious. He's pissed off about
I love
he
that.
is. I mean, is he just mad because of Oxley? Last thing he did was
I think he's mad at it because of his mom too.
Yeah, I guess all of it. I guess,
and she's watching him like she knows what. I think she knows what he's about to do.
Yeah.
which is
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, she's proud of him. She's a chip off the old
Yeah,
block.
he's seething.
He
He is.
He is.
He's stalking like a cat.
yeah.
Well, it's very interesting how they film this with Mutt, and I don't know if I can think of another scene where they stay on a character. You know, sometimes they do with Indy, you know, if he's thinking or whatever. But they stay on a character. Maybe that's not Indy, and the camera follows him and follows him and follows him where he's moving slowly for a long time, and he's thinking very intensely.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying it was filmed. It's an interesting, you know,
Yeah.
I could see in other Indiana Jones movies, usually that entire that sort of transaction or scene goes quickly.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. He's
like
stalking. He's stalking.
He is.
Yeah.
And he does not care at all about what they're talking about. Like they're
No.
figuring this thing out. So apparently they're figuring this thing out, but he does not care. Like, is his plan to just like, you know, upset the apple cart and then everybody just runs? And is he done with like the whole Akator skull quest and everything? Is he just like, I hate all this, let's just get out of here?
Well, yeah, I think he knows
somehow?
that they're going to kill him. Like, I think he knows that they just need to get out of there.
Yeah.
Which is weird because that's an Indy move.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like Indy's lost a step because Mutt's doing what Indy normally would have done. And not only did Indy not do it, Indy's caught off guard by it.
Yeah. Yeah. He got suckered in because he's addled. He's old and weird.
Well, you know, Tommy, getting back to like being suckered in and whether or not he and Spalko have this connection, I think, you know, in Raiders, the whole point is like, you know, Belloc is, what is it, a shadow of his former, you know, whatever.
He's a shadowy reflection.
Thank you, a shadowy reflection, and they tried to do that, I think, in Last Crusade with Elsa, and you're right, it's shallow here. There's not enough.
I mean,
to
Indy and
hold on
Belloc
to.
never like collaborated at all. They're like, hey, you know what? If you had your half of the headpiece and I had my half of the headpiece, you know, like, they never did any of that kind of stuff. Or
No, you know,
of course, the Well of Souls.
The one, you know, what's interesting. The one, I feel like one scene where that's an excellent question. Do Indy and Belloc ever collaborate? And I feel like, you know, one scene where it's just a pinch is when the control tower explodes and he goes, Jones. You're like, he's here and he's here and he's working on it, and you know, by golly, he found it.
He blew up that tower.
He blew up that. It's like he immediately he has a complete understanding that Indiana Jones found the Well of the Souls or whatever. You know, whatever.
If that's collaboration, then I'll accept it. Yeah. But this here is just kind of like, what are you doing, Indy? This isn't that interesting that you should be this distracted and you're just sort of palsy with Spalko all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Sure. I was very surprised that this was what Mutt was going to do. Like I guess that's my reaction. I'm watching him slowly and I'm like, I have no idea what he's going to do.
Can I ask you all, so listening to the early episodes, there was a LaBeouf beef, if you will, and not everyone was a fan. How have you all come around to either liking or disliking him further? Is there a general mood? I'm sort of neutral. I don't know if I care that much about him, but there are strong feelings on a lot of sides. We
have been, I think, with the exception of the first frame that he's in with that goofy hat and everything, I think we've sort of been on Mutt's side. He's for the most part. Yeah. I mean, there've been some trip ups here and there, but I think we dig him. Where he's especially if you're going in expecting to hate him, because that seems to be the way people approach this movie. Oh, it's the one with Mutt. Oh, great, Mutt's in it. But no, he's good. He's pretty solid, and I like a lot of the exchanges between him and Indy. And yeah, I don't think he's the death of this movie. I think he's pretty good.
I think he's fantastic in this minute.
Mm-hmm. In this minute, he's awesome.
He's fantastic. Yeah. I like his slow rollover with this like face of complete animus. He's I think it's great.
Yeah.
But again, I feel like I don't know if that's an Indiana Jones movie move.
I'd say, well, that's a little bit what I was saying. It the way it's shot. I don't know. Usually those things happen a lot faster. Like, okay, so think about. Remember, we had what was it in Last Crusade? I can't remember like he's with his dad and they're in the castle and there was that like Indy whips out a machine gun and mows down those Nazis. He punches them quickly and he mows down the Nazis. And there's that one beautiful pink rose petal that floated.
Yeah.
That was the one Nazi soul we said that flew out.
Yeah, went up to heaven.
Like that's like it's really fast and fast paced and they're like, whoa, Indiana Jones, this is a wow, you know.
Mhm.
And this is the opposite of that.
But there's been a few moments like this where I feel like his acting is maybe a little too naturalistic. Like I feel like, do we ever see anybody truly angry in an Indiana Jones movie before this point, or is everybody sort of cartoon angry? Like he looks like really like angry as a human being at this moment.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's something we see in other. Yeah,
I think it is maybe on par with Indy when he thinks that Marion is dead in Raiders, and he's drunk and he's just lonely and pissed off, and he sits down with Belloc, who he hates more than anybody in the world. Yeah. And what about your boss DeFerber and everything? Yeah. And it's slightly different, but it's kind of on par. I think it's like he could toss that table over with Belloc and set fire to the place in that second. He tries to. He kind of wants to.
Yeah.
But I know what you mean. It's maybe in this movie it's weird. In this Indiana Jones movie, maybe that's a little more intense than we've had before.
It takes a lot of guts of all things. You're like surrounded by, how many Russians are there? 40? 50?
Well, that's why I'm wondering, like, is it just, yes, his mom's been kidnapped and he's been kidnapped and Indy's, but he's had this moment with Oxley. We just saw him, like, he was like tears in his eyes trying to connect with Oxley, who he's finally face to face with after not knowing what was up with him for a long time. And that's what he's standing up from. And with this glare and this hatred. And is he blaming the Russians for the condition that Oxley's in? Or is he just fed up with the Russians and the skull and the whole thing and the Indiana Jones and all of it, and he just wants to get out of there?
And they took his bike.
And they took his bike. They left it.
Yeah, I think Mutt's fury dates back further even than the bike. Like when he first encounters Indy, finds him on the train, he's riding his bike along the platform. He takes him to the diner. He starts that fight. He's a vitriolic man who just is he's got a score to settle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. This is true to his, kind of greaser roots or persona,
Yeah.
Like as we saw in that soda shop, they should all be primed for a fight at any moment.
Although
that bottles are going to go flying.
That was Indy's plan.
That is true.
Recall. Yeah.
Yeah, but they were not. They didn't need a lot of coaxing. They jumped right into action.
That's true.
They knew exactly what was up.
Yeah.
And he throws a thing and sets that tent on fire, and everything's going higgledy-piggledy.
Is that tent made out of kerosene?
I think so. I think they doused those muslin drapes in the gasoline.
That's amazing how fast that burns.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Took all the mosquitoes with it.
Yeah, they use lighter fluid as mosquito repellent or something.
Yeah. So sad. So tragic.
Yeah.
Well, that's all I've got for 69.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have any deep thoughts?
I do have one more. I don't know how deep it is, but
we'll be the judge.
Maybe Thor, you can help me understand this.
Sure.
I suspect not. Indy says this could be the route, though. It's a completely unexplored part of the canopy. And I'm like, what the heck is he even talking about? Like the unexplored top of the trees?
He's thinking about Chewbacca and his house.
It is. It's weird. It's a weird line.
I didn't even pick up on the weirdness of it, but it is a very weird line.
Like, wow. Yeah, of course it is, unless, like you're a monkey or a bird or something.
There could be all sorts of fruits in there. We never know. It's unexplored.
But there is, I don't know, I would believe, like, if I had to put myself in the shoes of someone in the 1950s trying to traverse a part of the Amazon that was unmapped. So let's say, like, because they are in a weird place where, like, rivers are there, but they're very hard to locate. Mm-hmm. All you know on the ground is what you look up and see, which is just canopy. So if I were going to be sympathetic, I think that this is like not out of the realm of possibility of what someone would say, because all they
Okay, I
see
like that.
all day long is like trees and
Uh-huh.
dirt and
Yeah.
no way to judge what is east or west or south. I mean, they've got compasses, and like that is a thing. But yeah, I think we should treat him sympathetically in this read.
All right, you saved it. Thank you.
I mean, you make it sound like even now with satellites, all we can see is the canopy in a lot of
Can
places.
let me say one thing about that. So because it kind of hits home like the unknowability. So they can fly. So we've got satellites. They shoot lasers down into the canopy, and what they can judge is the density of it. So like if you imagine lasers shooting through foliage, like if it's super dense, it never hits the ground and doesn't bounce back. If it's bare, it bounces back very easily.
Oh, wow.
So even today, like if you hook one of those to one of those like rotor based drones, like so it's hovering relatively close to the trees. There's still a lot that like we get data, but it's all really rough. So like you couldn't tell where things are necessarily like in an exact location underneath that canopy. Which is like it's an intriguing problem because you can only see general shapes. You can't find would never find like an individual house or a hut or anything underneath there. It's just big general shapes.
Do you think maybe it's a use of synecdoche, right? The sort of the figure of speech in which like a part is made to represent the whole.
Sure.
Like he says the canopy, but what he really means is the entire jungle.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like when they say like all hands on deck, well, they don't mean just hands. They mean everybody's body on deck. Yeah, every person.
That works.
Thank you, Tommy. He pulled me out of the hole.
Well done, Jerry.
Well, Thor, it's such a delight to have you because
Absolutely.
I think what I heard was that you really enjoy this movie, and we need some sugar here on this podcast.
Yeah.
So please sweeten us up here. Tell us, do you like the aliens? You like the movie? We need you. What do you like?
So my take. Well, I do not envy your job, which is to dissect this 1 minute at a time forever. But
Literally,
but I do
forever,
love.
yeah.
But I do love dipping in, and hearing your all takes, and I won't touch upon this because I don't know anything about it, and hopefully you'll get a chance later on to deal with this. But the aliens thing is weird and corny and whatever for the movie, but I don't know. Maybe I listened to too many podcasts about things that Joe Rogan says, but alien like UFO events are a thing that like are legit in the news, and I don't know. There's this weird sort of like zeitgeisty moment where like this film, I think if it was released today, maybe they could do some more fun stuff with it. Like there's the alien part, I think is probably what makes the film, as you all have pointed out over past episodes, feel less Indiana Jones. I mean, it's probably what we have to blame is the aliens, but I don't know. That is one thing that makes me particularly tickled about this.
Okay. All right.
Nice.
Is there an Atlantis? Was there an Atlantis?
There was probably
outside of Caesar's palace.
So sea level rise probably did inundate some cities on coasts long ago that are like achievable. In terms of archaeology, those are really hard to find because they're underwater in salt water.
Yeah, it's a bum out.
Are you guys? Wait, let me ask you guys. Is the aliens thing just totally silly for you all, or is it something that you're still a little bit tickled about?
I
don't have a problem.
Idea of the alien thing.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I like the execution in this movie of the alien thing.
Right. Or the things they choose to dwell on and attribute to the aliens and stuff.
Sure.
And the whole kind of like wishy-washiness of like, oh, aliens from outer space. They're like interdimensional or something. Let's just say that.
I feel like they didn't really lean into the alien thing. Like they hedged a lot of bets.
Yeah. They could be like just some weird creatures from the jungle or something and not even be aliens or something like that.
Yeah. I wish they leaned into that a lot more.
Yeah. It's like the jungle. It's like they've got like some legit things that could be very interesting, and they somehow kind of muddle it up.
Well,
Yeah, I hear that.
and all the others are like, deities. And that's a very interesting thing. And a case could be made that, if you're kind of going through a survey of, religions, whatever, around the world, okay, aliens could fit in the deity hopper, maybe sticking out of the top or like out of a hole in the bottom of the hopper or something.
Yeah.
It's kind of half in there, I guess. But yeah,
I don't have a problem with like aliens coming to Earth and being interpreted as gods or something. Like that's fine. Like that's probably what would that's exactly what would happen. That's probably is what happened. Like they probably were gods or they probably were aliens. But yeah, the idea that like us dumb humans couldn't have built a pyramid without the help of some crystal skulled aliens. That's a little obnoxious.
Yeah.
I hear you.
Well, speaking of a little obnoxious,
Hey!
Speaking of someone who's weird as an academician, something's coming over the wire. This just in from Professor Christy Porter. I bet Pete thinks he didn't start that fire.
Oh my God. That's a deep cut. Wow. That's an IJM deep cut.
There you go.
Wait, why does Pete think he didn't start the fire? That would be Tom.
Anyway, moving on. Thor, thanks for being here. You've been great. If anyone wants to know what we're talking about, listen to our Jaws episodes on Patreon, on our bonus show, Anything Goes, which you can find at indianajonesminute.com/Patreon. But Thor, like Jerry said, thank God you were here. We had a lot of fun with you, and I hope you had fun with us.
Is there anything you would like to promote now?
I have nothing to promote, but thank you for having me. This was really fun and a joy. And please have me back next time a map appears on screen anywhere.
If they say map or anything. Yeah. There wasn't much of a map here, and we apologize.
But
they got all excited.
And there was plenty of you. So thank you.
Yes.
We needed it.
Yes, it was very fun.
Yeah, that was
awesome.
Thank you.
And everyone out there in Radioland, we hope that you had fun. And if you did, you should come back next week for minute 70. My gosh, we're another 10 minutes through this movie. We're on minute 70 of Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, right here on the Indiana Jones Minute. Nothing funny to say.
No. I
was waiting for it. Do it, Tommy. Do it, Tommy. But there was
do it, Tom. Do it, Tom.
Do what? I can't do it. There's no words on it.
There's an inappropriate joke about a sleeping snake.
Oh, sure, yeah. Slumbering.
Or toss a table and throw a kerosene lantern into a tent.